like God was working through me, which of course is, the whole point of even being up here. And so I just pray that He'll do the same this year, and that you'll get something out of today's message. So because, if you remember, I dressed as a TIE fighter, a Thailand fighter, character for Star Wars, and since then several people have started calling me Darth Preacher. So I wear I wear that badge with great amusement. My costume today is half normal person, half greatest American hero, half superhero. That's because there is a hero in all of us. And we're going to talk about how to be a hero. So the message title is Quest for Glory. So you want to be a hero. How do you be a hero? Well, first, because Quest for Glory is such an old video game series, I'll tell you a little bit about that so you kind of know the context of where the title comes from. So it was a game from Sierra, old PC game. The fourth one, Shadows of Darkness, was one of the first PC games I ever played, and to this day remains one of my favorites. So a lot of our screenshots actually are going to come from that game just because it's my favorite. But the first game was So You Want to Be a Hero. And people want a hero. They need a hero. We've got songs about it. People, I think that's a large reason why superhero movies are popular. There are other reasons, the technology that we have and everything, but I think in our culture, the people of today really want a hero. There's a lot of mess going on in the world, and people are looking for hope, and we can be that hope because we're tapped into the author of hope. But sometimes it's not so cut and dry, so easy as that. So we're going to break that down a little bit. So, so here's my Quest for Glory 4 screenshot. I just threw that in because I like the image from the game, so it actually has nothing to do with the message other than that. So we start by creating a hero, right? Us, we're a hero in the making. And in the game, you have the choice of a few different character types. And as you choose your character, you allocate, it's like a lot like any role-playing game, you allocate stats. And that's kind of the same thing that we do in life. We start off as, whatever God gave us to begin with. But then through, study, through choices, through interactions, we adjust our stats a little bit here or there, and we have different talents and abilities and interests. And so as we go through our quests, we apply what we can do, what we know, what we're able to do in different ways. And that's what an interesting life is, right? It's a series of quests. I should say that's what an interesting life is. You can go through life without taking any quests and just let life pass you by. I would like to think that if you're seeking after God, if you're seeking to be a hero, you're not one of those that wants to let that pass you by. You're wanting to take the quests. If you want a boring life, don't come to Christ, because the Christian life is not a boring life if you're following what He tells you to do. The thing is, though, people get caught up in a quest that they think is the main quest of life. This is your story quest, only to get to the end of life and find out it was actually a side quest the whole time. It never gets started on the main quest, because the main quest, of course, comes from God. He's the one that is the primary quest giver. That is the end goal, is to be with Him. Now, your job, your family, accomplishments in life, those are good side quests. Those are great. They're important. God uses those in our lives to influence us, to influence other people, but they're not the primary quest. And it's sad when people don't realize, they don't even get started on the primary quest. Mark 16:5, and then he told them, this is Christ talking to the disciples, go into all the world and preach the good news to everyone. Now, does that not sound like Christ giving us a quest?
Yes.
So, once we have the quest presented, we have to take the quest. That's your first step. That's your willingness to step up and say, hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna listen to the call of God. But not all quests come from God. Now, He's the ultimate quest giver. He works through everything. He's the game master, as it were. But quests come from people too. And so, part of that is your willingness to take those quests from other people. And sometimes these are people you don't necessarily like. So in the game, some of my favorite quests are from Baba Yaga. She shows up in the first game, and then she comes back in Shadows of Darkness. She is not a good person. She's not likable. But you can't get through the game, the story, the main quest line, without taking quests from her. And it's going to be like that in life. You're not going to always like the people who are giving you the quest. Maybe it's a boss that gives you a hard time. Maybe it's somebody who's hurt you. But even though you might not care too much for that particular quest giver, God's going to use that quest in some way to benefit you. The other thing to remember about your quests is that all of our quest lines are interconnected. We're in a massive multiplayer role-playing game here. You're not by yourself. You're not going through this by yourself. You're not isolated from other people. And that's one thing that I appreciate about groups like The Bridge, is it's a good reminder that we are all connected. We're all in this together, right? So you got your own stuff that you're going through, but you're not going through it by yourself. But the other thing is, after you take the quest, you got to pay attention. Now, if any of you have played World of Warcraft, they have really dumbed down the way you do quests. Because once you take the quest, you've got markers, and you've got arrows, and you've got highlights, and you really don't have to know anything about what you're doing in the quest to be able to complete it, as long as you just, kind of follow the colors and the arrows and whatnot. It didn't used to be like that, but that's the way it is now. Well, not so with Quest for Glory and a lot of the older games. If you're not paying attention, you're going to end up way over here fighting something in a graveyard that's going to kill you, when you should be over here talking to the princess. So you gotta pay attention. In real life terms, this can look like you getting so excited about something that God has called you to do that you completely lose focus on how He intends for you to go about it. Or if it's a quest that's coming from another person, you can be willing to help out, to take the quest for the benefit of this person, but because you're focused on, hey, yes, I'm going to do this, but not focusing on what the person actually needs, you end up going about it the wrong way, and in some cases, maybe do more harm than good. It's easy to get discouraged in our quest lines, because the other thing is we don't always get the information right up front. So you don't just have to pay attention at the beginning, you have to pay attention as you go along. And I had something over the past few months that has really brought that home for me. For those of you who don't know, I got married in May 4th. Thank you. That's my lovely wife over there running my slides. Rain was predicted for the day, and we prayed that God would hold back the rain. Our families prayed. There was a lot of praying going on because it was an outside wedding. A lot of praying going on that God would hold off the rain. We had perfect weather all day, all through the reception. The moment we got back to the room, the bottom dropped out. So I'm completely convinced that God did hold back the rain in response to our prayers. Well, shortly after that, I ran across a situation where it was a change in life that was related to the marriage that we knew was coming, and I was praying very hard for a very long time about it. So was Mallory, so were family members, and the answered prayer of the rain was a big encouragement for me. And also at the same time, we were going through a message series at my church about prayer, praying in faith, believing that God was, going to deliver. And so when people would ask me, are you worried about this? I said, no, God's got it. Well, we got to the deadline, and God didn't have it. Not in the way that I was praying that he would have it. Well, that changed my prayer, of course. God, take care of this before, the time comes when it needs to be taken care of and get there and it's not taken care of. My prayer changed to God. I know you didn't just not answer this prayer frivolously. I know you've got a reason for not. I have no clue what it is. Could you enlighten me? I want to learn. Clue me in here. And he didn't for, I guess, a couple of months, and I kept praying about it. And I talked to some of my trusted friends about it, and they said, they were encouraging, don't let your faith waver. God's still in control. I said, I know, but I wish I knew what the point was. So, I don't know, about 2 months or so after that, we got into a different message series at my church called When God Doesn't Make Sense. And it was about God not answering prayers when and how you thought he would. And I realized pretty quickly, about the second Sunday in this message series, the whole reason I went through what I did was to prepare me for that series, which then in turn he used to prepare me for today. If I hadn't gone through that period of time where he didn't answer when and how I wanted him to, the message series at church wouldn't have impacted me the same way that it did, and I would not have the message today that I have for you guys. So it was a continuing quest. I had to pay attention. I had to keep on with that quest line before I really understood what was going on. And who knows, maybe I still even haven't seen, the final results of that. But by paying attention, by staying encouraged, trusting God that he was going to show up at some point in his perfect timing, then I was able to get the answers that I had been looking for. The main crux of the message today, the thing that inspired everything that we talked about to get up to this point, is service. When you serve, oh yeah, that's I forgot about the slide. That's one of the questions. If you're not paying attention, you don't know what's going on here. So it's a lot different from the World of Warcraft that I was telling you about. You got to read, you got to know who the characters are, you got to figure out what that little thing is on the archway there, and that's how you'll get to the end of the story. So when you serve, this is when you become a hero. Matthew 23, 11 and 12 says, "The greatest among you will be your servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." So, being great isn't about being the world's version of great. Wars do not make one great. There's wisdom in that. If you think about the ultimate sacrifice of Christ, you see that people didn't understand what was going on because they expected him to come in and take out Rome with a sword. They were expecting a conquering hero. And instead, his plan was to lay down his life to conquer death. So being great is not always what you expect. Serving takes on a lot of different facets. It's not all the same thing. Carrie Elwes, when he found out about the church service this morning, he hugged me and encouraged me. And that meant a lot to me. And sometimes that's all service is just a hug and a word of encouragement. Ross made me breakfast this morning. A hungry Sith is a lot more apt to force choke people, so I'm glad to have been fed, and I'm glad for your sakes as well.
Yay!
So sometimes, that was an act of service that I appreciate. He actually makes breakfast for us in the condo every morning, but today was particularly important for me, wanting to be in top form, energetic, and not having the microphone pick up my stomach growl. So service does not always look the exact same way in every situation. And being great does not always look the same. I'm somewhat in the spotlight up here, talking to you guys, and it's easy for me, as it would be for anyone, to kind of revel in that spotlight. Ooh, look at me! I get to stand up and talk to people, and it's going on out on the internet. But that's not what it's about. I'm up here not for my own sake, my own purposes. I'm up here to serve you guys. I'm making myself a vessel to let God speak through me to bless you guys and deliver something that I hope will be helpful and encouraging for you. So I'm up here as a servant. That's how I see myself. And whether you're in the spotlight or not, service is what you want to focus on. So John 13, 14, and 17 is a kind of a long one. "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." So Christ served. He washed the disciples' feet. Not all of them wanted him to wash their feet, which I can understand. If I was in that position, he's the rabbi, he's the Son of God, and he wants to wash my feet. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not worthy for that. I need to be washing your feet. I completely understand that sentiment. But he wanted to set the example so that when we're in positions where we feel great, that we feel like, oh yeah, people should be doing for me. But no, how are we greater than Christ? We're not. And if he humbles himself to be a servant, then how can we do anything less? I've seen several examples in my life of Christians approaching non-Christians in various facets, expecting to be served rather than expecting to serve. And that attitude has kept people from being interested in what the church has to offer. One instance in particular, there was a friend of mine whose dad worked on electronics, and he had a bad taste in his mouth as far as Christians went, and he shared this with me after he learned that I was a Christian. We began talking about that sort of thing, and it was because he'd had so many preachers and other Christians of prominence come to him to have their electronics repaired and then expect something from him, a discount, a freebie, because they were, a preacher or a person of prominence. They were expecting to be served rather than to serve him. As a result, he didn't want to have anything to do with Christians. I was one of the few at the time that he would even talk to because of the attitude he'd gotten. So people notice it matters how you deal with people. Mark 10:43 and through 45. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So among us, that's who he's talking about. He's talking about his followers. Among us, it will be different. To be a leader, we must serve. We must wash each other's feet, as it were. Whether you're, a person who is in the spotlight and has many fans, whether you're an introvert with social anxiety who has a small circle of friends, you have a place to serve others. And to follow that up, I want to tell you a story of how service served me. I basically had a 2015 from hell. Now, a lot of you know me well, know the story well. Mallory's not my first wife. I was married for years that ended in 2015. So during that year, my wife left me 3 times, with the final one sticking. My dad died in a freak accident, almost killed my mom. And it's taken her years to recover. Through various uncontrollable circumstances, my finances took a big hit. My uncle died a month after my dad. It was just one thing after another. I mean, it was horrible. And it shook my faith a little bit, just because it was so much bad, it was really dragging me down. But I had put myself in a position of service with my church. I'm a tech. I do audio and video, and I was a professional DJ at one time. Worked for TV stations, so I have some knowledge and experience with that, and I apply that. Even though that's not what I do now, I apply that to service in the church. And so I, at the time, was one of their favorite sound guys. I'm now one of their favorite video guys. Works for me. And so they were counting on me to be there every Sunday to run the board, to help with the praise team, to help with the messages. And if I just didn't show up, stuff didn't get done, and it was going to be a problem. And since there was a level of expectation, a level of me, wanting to be there, they're a very appreciative church. They make sure that no matter how small your task is, that you know that you're appreciated. And as a result of that, I knew that I was loved and wanted and appreciated. And so those mornings where I might wake up and think, I really don't feel like going out and doing people today. I don't feel like going out in public. But no, I've got a place to serve. I need to be there. In previous years, my early life, I dealt with depression very heavily. I was finally divinely delivered from that, which I am very grateful for. But you know, that genetic makeup or whatever, I guess, that caused that within me, you know, is still part of me. And the devil will try occasionally to drag that back up and try to drag me back down into depression. And so this, obviously, if he was ever going to do it, 2015 would be the year to do it. But because I was serving my church, he couldn't get a foothold. Because if he tried to tell me, well, you're just, you know, nobody cares, you're worthless, you're not doing anything with your life. Because that was something that, you know, my dad died, I'm thinking about mortality a lot. What am I doing in my life? But because I was serving, that couldn't get a foothold. Because I knew I was doing something for other people. I knew I was doing something for the kingdom. It kept me in good spirits, relatively speaking. It prevented depression from me being able to take hold in me. And that's what I want to encourage you to remember as you go out and you think about service. You're not just serving other people, even though you are. You're also serving yourself, because rain's going to come into your life at some point. And it just happens to us all. But if you're engaged in service, then you've got a stat, to bring it back into the role-playing conversation, that this is going to be beneficial to you, and you're going to find that it's a blessing to you. So with that, I want to say thank you all for being here. When you leave here, go out and find somebody to serve. Whether it's offering them an encouraging word, whether it's making them breakfast, whether it's helping them pick something up off the ground that they dropped. Whatever it is, go out and serve somebody and see if it doesn't bless you. That's all the official programming that we have for the service. And I actually have no idea what time it is, if we've even got
9:17. You're early.
Oh, we're early. Well, that actually was by design, because in the past we have we've had to rush people out of the room to get ready for whoever's coming in next. And as we were talking about the scheduling for today, I said I don't want people to have to rush out, because for a lot of us, this might be the only time we're all in a room together throughout this whole con, because we're so busy. We've got so much to do, so much going on. So I wanted us to have a little bit of time to mill about, to talk, to fellowship, maybe get to know somebody that you haven't met before, to ask questions. You know, feel free to come talk to me or any of the other bridge leaders if you have questions about faith. Most of us are con veterans. If you have questions about the con that don't have anything to do with faith, come talk to us. And we have, if you're part of the bridge, we have thank you cards for the folks who have made it possible for us to get the room from year to year. So Jack has them back there near the door. Oh, sorry, they're over here. So if you haven't signed those, there are 2 cards, but they're for the same purpose. There are just so many people to sign that we needed 2 of them to fit everybody. So stop by and sign that. Jack, do you have anything?
That's what I was going to say. I also want to say thank you for everybody who volunteered, who helped out.